Another Dave Olson 5. I'll get back to that. Um, and I'm going to do one from you, Eric Blake. Don't you worry. A Tiemens. My God, that's a name we haven't seen in a long time. I wondered what was happening to them, and I've been worried about them. Oh, here's one. This is a 5 upvotes, and then there's a 7 from Martin Archer. But this one is from Crecker Tiberius James. Ha ha! See what he did there? What do you think of Joker? I thought Joker was absolutely magnificent. The left hates Joker, and let's stay out of the politics of Joker for a minute. One of the reasons that the left hates Joker is because they have done all of the. They've just told an honest story. Not only did they not put left-wing politics in it, they just pretty much ignored it. And you can draw a number of political conclusions from it, but the first conclusion, the main conclusion you draw, is that this guy kills people because he's a messed up guy. It's not because the gun happened to be lying on the table, flew into his hand. It's because we spend enough time seeing society trample this guy so that when he finally snaps, it's not only not surprising, in a way it's almost cathartic. You're almost with him on this. It's like, yeah, this guy actually has been wronged so often, you almost want to applaud him for becoming a mass murdering psychopath. It is without question the best performance I've ever seen in my life, and it beat the second best performance I've ever seen in my life. The first performance was Joaquin Phoenix in Joker, and the second best performance I've ever seen in my life was Joaquin Phoenix in The Master. That guy is on a different plane. I saw him in a movie opposite Philip Seymour Hoffman, The Master, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's a fantastic actor. But what Joaquin Phoenix was doing was beyond it was beyond acting, and what he does in Joker is beyond acting. I've never seen a performance like it ever. It is so nuanced. It is so perfectly balanced, and just the technical. Just from an acting point of view, the acting technically in it, forget all the stuff about how good the characterization is, forget about all the internal stuff, the outside stuff, the way he walks, the way he's bent over, and especially his laugh. He's managed, I guarantee you that Joaquin Phoenix spent 6 months working on that laugh. 6 months. And you can just tell that it's very, very hard on the voice. That it's just really, every time he makes that laugh, I can almost like cringe a little bit because I can feel him ripping out his vocal cords. Billy Bob Thornton said the same thing about his character in Swing Blade, about Carl. He basically said, I just scrunch my face up like I'm about to walk into a wall, and then I use this voice, and he says, and after an hour of shooting, it really starts to hurt. And all of these technical things. But Joker is the future, because as Hollywood gets more and more and more into these $400 million comic book stories, I'll tell you what my thought was when I came out of Joker. When I got out of Joker, I remember my first thought was, this guy makes Batman matter. This guy is so important and so good, and I mean so evil and so identifiable. The villain became so good that you almost, in fact, not almost, you leave Joker saying, where's Batman? And the Batman I want to see is, I don't want to see Batman come in with a hovering space car. I want Batman to be young Bruce Wayne, who's in this movie, obviously, and I want him to be wearing a suit that he's essentially made himself, and I want him to have a couple of simple devices, and I want him to go out there and just punch the living daylights out of people. And I want it to be gritty, and I want it to be real, and I want it to be almost all of it without the mask on, so that when you finally have a battle between these two guys, if they can do to Batman what they did to Joker, then you'll care. And that's all that really matters in a movie. Do you care? If you care about the characters, you're invested in the movie, you remember it fondly. And if the world it's set in is a world like Star Trek or Star Wars, then you want more of it. But this Joker makes Batman necessary. You come out of that movie thinking, what is going to stop this? Because he starts a whole movement. That's why the left hates it. He's basically, Joker becomes king of Antifa. And that's brilliant. We saw this kind of things about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe a decade ago with James Bond, where James Bond was getting to the point where, okay, so now Bond has to go to this orbiting space station, riding a shuttle up there, and when he gets up there, he and an army of guys in yellow jumpsuits are going to attack an army of guys in red jumpsuits with laser guns, and then they're going to turn this giant diamond-generated death weapon off into space and so they keep making James Bond more and more and more. They keep trying to top it in terms of spectacle, and this is what we saw with the original with the Michael Keaton Batman series. First one was pretty good and pretty down to earth in a lot of ways. Second one, not bad. Third one, ridiculous. Fourth one, just a parody of it. So we had James Bond going from a guy with a gun to being a guy who's going to fly space shuttles up to a space station or surf, whatever that thing that Pierce Brosnan did. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger, more and more unbelievable, tried to keep topping itself in terms of graphic impact and action impact. But they simply made James Bond ridiculous. And then along comes Casino Royale. And you go from this suave kind of, well, in the case of Roger Moore, almost like Faye, almost like a dandy, kind of like a parody of James Bond. And you take him from being a guy who's going to go fly a space shuttle mission to a guy with a gun, a psychopath who wants to kill people, but he's killing people for the right side. And you get rid of all of that, and all of that space stuff, and all of that flying car stuff, and all of that submarine stuff, all of that. Just throw it away, put him in a back alley with a gun, pursuing another guy with a gun, and that reboot made James Bond matter again, because James Bond fighting one guy is a lot more interesting and a lot scarier if you care about James Bond and you understand the danger of the villain. It's much more engaging, much more interesting, and much more emotional. I'd much rather watch a good James Bond fight one guy. We saw that on From Russia with Love with Robert Shaw and Sean Connery. Two great actors is much more interesting than him flying and dealing with an entire army of people who are all going to be killed whenever he shoots at them, knowing full well that, that Bond is untouchable. He may catch one on the outside of the shoulder, just to give you a little sense that, there are stakes, but there are no stakes. So, anyway, that's the basics of it. Let me go back and see what the second part of that question was. Oh, so Joker, yeah. It is the best performance I've ever seen. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. It stayed with Natasha and I for a long time. We discussed it for days after that. And everybody who I've been referencing earlier, all of these people who have been watching our pop culture be destroyed, and all of this stuff, every one of them had the same reaction to Joker, and that was like, oh my God, Hollywood made something good. They made something real. It's only a matter of time now before they destroy it, but this was actually excellent. Every single person across the board had that reaction, and they had the same reaction. They didn't layer on $200 million worth of CGI. They hired a good actor and a good writer and a good director. And once you got that, nothing else matters. which is why ultimately, when it's all said and done, everybody talks about the director, and certainly a director can ruin a good script, and a director can occasionally turn, you know, junk into stuff that's pretty decent. But it's the story. It's all the writer. It's the writer. Do you care? Do these people engage you? If they do, then you'll believe in vampires, and you'll believe in spacemen, you'll believe in Darth Vader, you'll believe in all of this stuff. And if they don't, it doesn't matter how much visual spectacle they throw up there. It's interesting to look at for a couple of minutes. I swear to God, the fight scene in Man of Steel is an hour and a half of two CGI characters who are both immortal bashing each other through buildings, and I've never been so bored in my life, honestly. So let's see what else we got here.